Elang, bo Eva batlola technology, o bona batlong fa mic. Ha bone lo rwetsa lang. Hey Eva. Shangi technology. Guys, o ka re le tshwere ke boroko so. Yeah? 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 Are we all fine? Are we all fine? Yeah? Can we all touch our hips? Yeah. I saw you, but I'm not going to report you, ne? Can we try it again? Can we all touch our heads? It means Sibongile is going to be talking to people that won't be listening, yeah? Can we all touch our what? Our heads, ne? For the last time. Can we all touch our heads? Give yourselves a big round of applause. Thanks a lot, guys, for coming here one more time. We decided to do this thing so that we can help our industry get more information and get educated and get updated. And we can only do that if we invite our activists, people that have been there, that are knowledgeable, but in their own right, being creative workers, being artistic people, people that know this industry, who turned themselves into activists. And the reason they did that is because they realized that it's now or never. If you have noticed with all these lectures that we've been having, there are people that are just here to help us. You are younger than us, most of you, and we can only leave this legacy to you. And it can only happen if it's documented. And if the people that have lived this life come to tell you the story. It's nice when it's beautiful out there, but trust me, it can get more hectic, And we can only get this knowledge if we listen to those that have already walked the path. And, we know that we are not being funded to do this, but it's the only way we can do it. If we don't gather our little resources and gather ourselves and start doing this, it will never happen. So that's one of the reasons we are having this. So today's guest is none other than somebody that has already been there. She's taught the world. Last week, in fact, they just won a competition internationally in South Korea, especially in Israel. She took a choir from the Free State. She went to compete against all the countries in the world. And listen to me, they won in one of the categories. And she's one of those people that were not scared. It's very rare in this country to find somebody being popular in opera music. Most of us, fune piano and, but there's a whole lot of things that can happen. And I'm hoping that one of you out of this room today will go out there and create something that's innovative, something that's unusual, just like she did. Obviously, she was born from a musical family, and we happen to share the same mom somehow, the late Mom Sibongile. She's not her original mom. She's not my original mom. But one way or the other, Mom Sibongile Kumalo was our mother. Let's welcome on stage Sis Sibongile Mngoma. Simshaleni zandla. Wakarle kwatile so. Apia my plate, my plate, apia my plate, apia my plate, apia my plate, apia my plate. Yes. Oh, konji makeup ne? Nami ngishayile makeup. So which one is powerful? The dark one or this one?
Mine.
Asimshaleni izandla one more time. She's very strict. Nyasaba nokwenza amanye ama jokes ne? But at some point we even did a song. There was kwaito and opera. And I think it's time we release that song. It was recorded maybe 20 years ago.
Sanbonani. 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 Right. Now I believe that we have a room full of active creatives. Otherwise, it's just another room full of people, right? But this is a room full of active creatives. My name is Mngoma. I'm the president of SALSIF, and I'm for the arts. I am an artist. I am an educator. I'm a conductor. I'm a composer. I'm a director. I'm a producer. And I'm an activist. I didn't choose to become an activist. I just became an activist because there was inactivity in a space where there was a need for action. So today I'm not going to speak too high above where we need to be communicating as people that work in a certain space. Because sometimes when you hear lecture, we think we need to come out here and speak big English so that by the time you're finished, nobody remembers what you said. But what I'm here for is to... Does anybody mind? Right. Because I think so it's fine here. So today I'd like us to have a conversation around the roles that we play as organizations of organizations. Because every other week, there's another organization that is being introduced because the organizations that exist are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So let's have a conversation about what it is that we all should be doing instead of sitting there pointing fingers at each other, criticizing each other, and not growing as a sector. So the topic for my engagement today, I won't call it a lecture, is the CCI and federations. I speak as the president of SALSIF, which is the South African United Cultural and Creative Industries Federation. Our whole entire premise is about the united. So before we go any further, so that we understand our level of engagement and we are all on the same page, I'm going to give a couple of definitions so that when I say CCIs, we all speak the same language. Masingathi CCIs and we're speaking something else other than what CCIs are. I see here it says CCI lecture. So that's cultural creative industries, right? So what is cultural? Dictionary definition talks about creative arts. Cultural comes with customs, amasiko nezithethe. It also comes with heritage. But sometimes when we talk cultural and we're talking in terms of the work that we do, we water down what the role of the work we do is in our cultural framework. We have watered down things so much that we don't even know what it means to be in a cultural space. When we are at home, is that a cultural space? Is that a heritage space? Is that a customary space? What is it? We don't know because we've watered down everything and we've dumbed down how much we understand what we are saying half the time. And then we talk about city cultural, city creative. So when we talk creative, what are we talking? What does it mean? Do you know a scientist who comes up with a cure for cancer is being creative in that space? Does that mean they're an artist then? An economist who creates a working space that generates a profit is creative. Does that make them an artist? And then let's talk about the last part, the industry. So what is an industry? Industry is an economic activity concerned with a product. So the product must generate something of a profit or an income for it to be industry. If it doesn't generate a profit or an income, it's not an industry. Hence the grant industry that we've inherited from those who are supposedly taking care of the cultural and creative industry is not working. Because the minute you start talking a grant, you are talking about dysfunctionality being managed. Because let's think about it rationally. You give a grant to someone who doesn't have parents. There's dysfunction there. That's an orphan. So you give them a grant to survive as orphans, right? The same thing. You're sitting with someone who doesn't have money to go to school, so you give them a bursary, a grant to go to school. You're addressing a dysfunction. So how is it possible that we call ourselves an industry and yet we are managed like a dysfunction with a grant management system? So now that I think we are on the same page about what it is that we are talking about, is everybody clear what I'm saying right now? Am I talking too fast? Am I talking too much English? If I'm not talking too fast, then we're good. Because along the way, kusasa people are asking, then what is SIFSA? Then what is SALSIF? What is Cciga? What is the other one? What is everything? We need to understand each and every organization in the space so that we can find each other. We always speak English and cool about synergy and stuff, but we cannot synergize what we don't understand. So let's first of all understand what it is that we're talking about. Let's clarify. So what is a federation? A federation is an organization, one that brings together other organizations. So you cannot belong to a federation unless you are an organization. It's not a group of individuals that come together. That is just an organization, an association, a movement, or whatever term you want to use. But once you start talking federation, it's like a union. Then you start talking broader terms where you are now including a broader society because the concerns are too big. And definition, yet dictionary, it's a group of organizations that work independently of central government to fix their internal affairs, a unifying body with a powerful voice. So the minute a federation is managed from central government, it's no longer a federation, because then it is not an independent structure that is supposed to create a powerful voice to lobby, advocate, grow, build for a sector or a group of organizations that function in a sector. All right? So SALSIF is a federation that was created by a group of artistic organizations when there came a need because of a dysfunction. And there was a gap because there was not a powerful voice in the space to lobby, to advocate, to pioneer, to unify. And SALSIF does not come from government. It is an artist-generated federation by artists for artists. So, yes, before there was SALSIF, there was CIFSA, and CIFSA is still there. CIFSA is a federation that was supposed to be doing what SALSIF is now doing. The only problem is that because of where it generated Along the way, there will be derailment, because if I control the purse, I control the narratives. If I control the purse, I will tell you when you are making me uncomfortable to stop. Whereas if I don't control the purse and you have advocacy and agency, then you can tell me exactly what needs to be said, because you have the right to and you have the power to. And here's the other thing. Where there is unity, there's strength. Nobody who wants to retain power wants unity. Every time somebody wants to retain their power, they will always advocate for disunity or division. So if you are then calling yourself a federation, you are supposed to unite the different groups that work in that space so that they have a powerful voice that advocates for them. Right? Are you still together? Are we learning something? Are we growing somehow? Good, because then, if this is what we understand then to be a federation and the role of a federation, then we have two very potentially powerful structures that should be advocating and lobbying for all artists of South Africa. We shouldn't be waiting for the next funding call. We shouldn't be waiting for the next grant management system to open, because in essence, the federations should be there to give direction. Advocacy talks about giving direction because you advocate for change. You advocate for systems that are not in place to be put in place. And right now we're sitting with a situation where people are expected to be tax compliant, and yet they are not even workers. So what tax are you being compliant to? The Department of Labor expects a report on each and every worker that pays tax, and yet artists in this country are not workers. But who is supposed to advocate for artists to be recognized as workers? If it isn't us as federations, if it isn't us as art organizations or movements that are supposed to be speaking truth to power, then who? So if I've been in existence as a federation for 10 years and the artists of this country are still not recognized as workers, what is my role? What have I been doing for 10 years? Questions. I'm not here to give answers. I'm just here to open the eyes, open the ears, give a different perspective in terms of what it is that we're thinking. What are the conversations that we're having? Because we cannot be having conversations of which Sibongile, they only stand up because abasayitholi imali. That cannot be our conversations if we are serious industry people. And when I talk industry, I'm talking profit generation. If you're not generating a profit and you're running a business, what kind of business is that? Because it's your profit that is going to get you more stock. I'm going to put together a production, and then after that production, we are futhi hat in hand, asking for more money. When is your production generating an income for the next production? That's what business is. When I was growing up, at some point I used to sell sweets. I had a packet and I would sell my sweets, and then out of the money I got from that first packet, then I would get more sweets. Business every day, Friday, because because that's what you do. You're running a business, it's got to grow. But if it's not growing, then you're not running a business. You're essentially, grant a dysfunction that is being managed. So there's no growth, there's no change, there's nothing. You are empowered to stay poor. Phela, that's what a grant does. It empowers you to stay poor. It doesn't empower you to grow. Hence, I still agree with the narrative of a PESP. Because the PESP was about a stimulus. A stimulus assumes that you are stimulating something because it's going to continue. But if you are not stimulating anything to continue and you keep giving a grant, then you are telling that person to come back. Think about it, about this SASSA grant. I mean, the SASSA, they come back because it's only 350. It lasts from the time you get to last person in the queue to collecting your SASSA. The minute you walk away, that SASSA grant is gone. Think about it. It's gone. The minute you leave there, transport, yokubuyela ekhaya, isinkwa, impuphu, it's gone. Even tomorrow, my darling, you're not even going anywhere with that SASSA grant because it's finished. Now, let's take it to a broader scale. Let's think of it in terms of productions. So, you are a group of artists working together. You get a 250,000 rand grant to do one production. And these grants they come like 3-4 times a year? And you still have 12 months out of a year. So it's not like just because you get a grant 3-4 times a year, the months become less and they become 4 months now to cover the grants. It's still 12 months that we still need to get through, right? So in essence, we are still being empowered to remain poor. So we are not stimulating an industry to grow. If we're talking about contributing to the GDP of this country, how do we contribute with poverty? We can't. So there's a role that then needs to be played by federations. It's not the role of sitting here pointing fingers at each other. I'm just highlighting the problems that are there and why we are not moving beyond a certain point, because we are not having the correct conversations. We keep having the wrong conversations. Ooh, did you see? Fagene red lips, kohle red lips yam. If it doesn't put bread on your table, forget about my red lips. Let's think about what it is that will put bread on the table. What is it that your federation that represents you is saying? To whom? When? Is it at the right time? If they're only speaking for you a month before Grahamstown and you want to go to Grahamstown, it's too late. They should have been talking for you, speaking on your behalf. The minute Kupela, the previous festival, they should have been there to speak for the next festival. It takes 12 months to plan, then let's plan ahead. And that's what advocacy and lobbying is about. It cannot be about, we're always waiting for we're always reactive. We are not proactive. We wait for somebody to come to us with an announcement of a grant. But we are not going there to say, if this is how much the Central Bank of South Africa is giving you as a department, then surely, majority, 70% of that budget should be going directly to the artists. And yet, it's the other way around. It's not even 70%, it's 10%. Now, let's talk sense. Let's talk sense. But that is the role of the federations, to go there with a plan. What are we envisioning? What are we seeing? It's not on the government department. It's not on anybody else. It's on us. It's on us. What are the conversations that we're having? What are the plans that we've put in place? Are we constantly waiting for the next funding call to be made? Have we ever asked to be part of the conversations that bring the funding calls out? And if we are not part of those conversations, what are we not getting right? What is wrong with us? It's not them, it's us. Hence, remember, a unifying body with a powerful voice, that's a federation. If that federation is not unifying, the organizations it represents and creating a powerful enough voice for them to have a seat at the table to change their future, then that organization is not doing its job. Then it's time for us to call each other out. I can't be sitting there with a title and I'm doing absolutely nothing for the artists. It's not about me being the president of SASIF. It's about the work that SASIF must do for the artists. If SASIF is not doing its work as a federation, then SASIF must be called out. The same for CIFSA. If CIFSA is not doing its work to get the best for the artists, then CIFSA must be called out. And as federations working in the same space, why are we not calling each other out without feeling like we are attacking each other? Our banks are regulated so that they can all function in the same space. Okay, when Standard Bank ne Absa because they are all banking. No, because they understand there is enough space for everybody to function and operate here. But some artists, we don't think like that. We're always thinking, if Sibongile Sekane Federation, it doesn't work like that. Think about it. There are banks. How many banks do you know? You never see even a single bank who's because banks. Pelili industry, but the minute they do that, because then they don't understand, we need each other to generate. Ngale nkathi be generator ngalesikhathi lesiphuma lama loans ngalena ku generator kuphuma manje ziya somewhere khona la zikrosana khona, because there's a supply and a demand, but it's created by the people that work the industry. But Tina, we are driven by ego, we don't get it. You think just because everybody went to the National Arts Festival, it means your art dies? How? In a country with so many millions of people, you think the 10,000 that went to Grahamstown is the sum total of your audience. What is it that you're not thinking? Sane. I just want to go back to the issue of languaging. Languaging is what is taking us back. We use terms and language that doesn't take us forward. It doesn't grow us in any way. I spoke earlier about the issue of cultural and creative industries. The one thing that we took out of the equation when we brought in the terms cultural and creative industries was art. And the sad part about taking art out of the narrative when you talk about the cultural and creative industries is that when we still use the term artist, it assumed that there was uniqueness. For you to be an artist, you've got to be unique. It assumed that there was talent. It assumed that there was creativity. It assumed that there was heritage, history, pioneering, education, and so much more. But the minute you start watering it down and calling it cultural and creative industries, it's open sesame, anything goes. That's why we no longer know what an artist is. We don't. We don't. Anybody and everybody can be an artist as long as they're doing something that is indefinable. If it doesn't make sense, then it's art. Right? Yes. There are people who've honed their skills of DJing, for example. You put those decks in front of them, they will tell you exactly how it works. And then somebody who's an stick and a desk that is not even plugged on. And they're playing somebody's set that they stole, because in this country we are not advocating for intellectual property rights. Then somebody touch a stick, asbege la pian, and then angapplug abegi desk la, and then they go. Now you see where it gets interesting is where somebody, because they haven't honed their skill, ukhohliwe ukuthi file out. Uthi angithi bese bathi sekathi ke Because it's not a skill. It's what you do when you want to be insane and you want to justify it by calling it art. Because that's the only space where everything goes. Anything goes. And everybody can charge whatever they like because it's a creative space. We no longer even question the lyrics that we are listening to. There was a time when we used to be the conscience of our society. Not anymore. All we hear is nakedness, drugs, drunkenness, and that's art. But that's because the organizations that are supposed to be in that space to give direction are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Because sisaba ukuthi kuzothiwa siblocker. I-blockage enkulu ile yokwala ukuba yitalent. I-blockage enkulu ile yokwala ukuba yigift. And now, with that being said, what are we left with? We are left with definitions that need qualifications from UNESCO and tertiary institutions. The very same bodies that are still excluding us. Mangithi us ngibala mina umuntu omnyama. Let's think about it rationally. Who are the most excluded? It's us. We are scared to talk about being excluded as black people because it's politically incorrect? No. Our reality is we need to address the problems of our history so that we can have a better future. If we don't address those problems, we will continue with the problems and we will continue managing the dysfunction with grants because we are shutting down the conversation about the ineffectuality of what we are sitting with, which does not mean that we have changed. It just means we manage the dysfunction that we inherited from our oppressors. We inherited it, we did not interrogate it. And because we did not interrogate it, it's grown into an even worse monster than it was when we inherited it. Because Tina, we are good at creating izinto ezisihlukumezayo. If there was a problem of gatekeeping before in the space, Tina manje we've made it worse. We've made it worse by adding corruption and being evil to the equation. If I don't like what you're saying, I will do everything in my power to destroy you. Whether it's just your reputation, whether it's your income, whether it's your family, whatever it takes, I will do whatever it takes to destroy you because I need to gatekeep the dysfunction that I keep on nursing because I will not interrogate it. And that is where our federations should be leading from the fore and making sure that we address the disparities of the past. But we are not, because our federations are led by us. Ngiyazibala because I'm president of the federation. By us, people who are not ready to put our egos aside. All we want to do is to hold on to our positions, but we don't want to see a change that is good for all. All we think about is if kuphume 2 million, then leo 2 million siqala kuphi ukuhlukaniselana before we even think about the 2 billion that hasn't even come out. Because we are being managed with a grant system because we are dysfunctional. And I will not stop saying it until ingenelela. I wanted to stick. A grant system is there to manage a dysfunctional space. If you're talking industry and business, I can't run a business who will say, I am managing myself with a grant. Anybody who's running an industry or a business will tell you, I am generating an income that is going to give me a profit. I am generating an income that was going to give me a profit. Now, Umandla Masego, for example, will come in and talk to you about intellectual property. Intellectual property purports having something that generates a passive income while you're sleeping. If you don't get that, then you don't understand what it is all about. Because while you're sleeping, that intellectual property should be generating an income for you, whether it's on radio, on TV, on print, wherever it is. It's your intellectual property. But our dysfunction is so deep that we are not even having those conversations. We will sit there, we will be taught about these things, but we don't know how to action them because we have no money, no plan to action anything. But is that on the artist or is it on us as federations? Because what is the role of federations in the cultural and creative industry space? And that is what I'm here to talk about, because that is important. We can't be sitting here constantly fearing one another because we are a people that never knew how to celebrate one another. Every time somebody comes up with something good, we have to find a way to rubbish it because we think it makes us look better. It doesn't. So we need to have a different conversation. And today I'm challenging the two federations, ISAUCIF and SIFSA, to actually sit down and have a proper conversation that will take us all forward. In fact, these two federations are not even enough for the number of artists we have in this country. They're not enough. Think about it rationally. If you look at it this way, so there's an issue of education. Our education has not even been touched. If anything, it's gotten worse. It hasn't gotten better. It has not gotten better. So what are we saying about being educated as an artist in this country? What makes you an educated artist in South Africa? Let's not talk about my neighbors. Let's talk about South Africa. What makes you an educated artist in South Africa? Nobody knows, because nobody has ever decided. So if in 2023, after we've been in a democracy since 1994, we still don't know what makes for an educated artist, then what are the conversations that are being had around rich tables? What are the roles that are being played by the unions, the federations, all these organizations, everybody who's fighting for, everybody who's doing it? What is the implementation plan of the policies that have been talked about and talked about? Kunama white paper revised by 15. What is the implementation plan? Who's implementing the plan? Is there a plan? Or is there just a paper? Pela, you can have a paper without having a plan. Do you know that you can have a paper? I mean, look, you can have this thing without having a plan and say, Sibongile Mngoma, CCI lecture, and then you don't call Sibongile. You don't put together this group of people to come together. You don't book a venue. You just have that. It's a piece of paper, but there's no plan. Is there a plan? And if there is a plan, who is supposed to implement the plan? With what money? Isn't it, it's the same money that we say gune budget that was released by Treasury? Surely that budget should be taking care of implementing a plan that is already in the white paper, because the white paper is there. It was adopted by Parliament. So, adoption ye paper iyafana nokuthi adopt umntwana social development, but you didn't take the child. So you took the adoption papers, you left the child. Do you get me? So you took the adoption papers and the child is where? So now you have the Parliament accepted the white paper. What is in the white paper? It's the adoption of the child, right? The adoption of the child. Now, where is the child? If in actual fact, the child had come out with the adoption papers, we wouldn't have gone through what we went through during the pandemic, because all of that information is in the white paper. If the adoption papers had come out with the child, we would still not be talking about AMA orchestra and this and that, because it's in the adoption papers. If the adoption papers had come out with a child, we would not be talking about a flag that will educate people at night because it stays lit during load shedding. So sometimes the conversations we are having are not necessarily the conversations we should be having. We get easily distracted. I'm going to say an example why I say we get easily distracted. Something happens in the middle of Joburg. Yesterday? Day before. I don't know, I was traveling, so I only picked it up last night. So, day before yesterday, something happens in Joburg. Less than 48 hours later, there's a thing, and abantu base ZCC, bayakita so, istrata siya jump, and cars go flip-flop. That's how easily distracted we are. It's a joke because we haven't taught ourselves how to focus. What caused that thing to happen? Is it possible it will happen again in the next couple of days and this time cause even more distraction? Or are we more interested in laughing because that's just who we are? Coping mechanisms are okay, but we cannot be coping for the rest of our lives. At some point, we need to start making a difference for ourselves. Because they're not, what are you doing to ensure that whatever it is that is not happening somewhere else is happening in your space? What is it that you're doing? And if it's not you, then the federation that purports to be representing you, what is its role then? If you feel, like, I'm too small to go out there mean, then what is your federation doing? Because it's a powerful voice. Remember what I said in the beginning? That powerful voice? So if it's that powerful voice, then why is it not powerful enough to advocate for change? You know, we talk about being compliant. Compliance. Every time you have to apply, you have to be compliant. Compliant to what? Ask anybody who operates in the financial space. They will tell you what the rules of engagement are. Ask anybody who works in the medical space. They will tell you what the rules of engagement are. Any doctor, any surgeon, anybody who works in that space knows if you're going to go into an operating room, then there are certain procedures that you have to go through. Change of clothing, sanitizing, the preparation of the patient, the space, everything, the tools that have to be used. What are our rules of engagement? Do we have rules of engagement? Do we? Let me go back a little bit to, I spoke about us being the conscience and the voice of society. In terms of our social engagements, we have families. There was a time when if there was an issue, it would be raised by artists first. Hence, we were still called artists, not creatives, artists. Nowadays, we have a problem with rape, drugs, human trafficking. You won't even hear a song about it. You won't, because everybody wants to be part of a problem because it's glamorous. It's glamorous to rape a 4-month-old baby. But artists are not coming out to say anything about it. We are not drawing, We are not singing, we are not acting, we are not dancing. Instead, we are waiting for the next funding call because we are a dysfunction that is happy to be managed with a grant management system. Now, where are we at currently? There's a huge gap. There's a lot of knowledge out there. There are a lot of experts that can take us to where we need to go. But there's a gap. And the gap is a communication gap. It's now up to us as federations to take the gap and bring together all the experts, all the people sitting with knowledge around the same table to speak a language that takes us where we need to go. We can never ever have any more in this day and age a federation or an organization that is only black. We can't afford it because the money doesn't sit with us. So I can be proudly black, I can be proudly black consciousness, but as long as imali ngekho fun. So it's time to talk to the people. Would you like some water, darling? Please get some water because, that's just disturbing. Somebody help. We can no longer afford to be proudly black, but we don't control the purse. We can no longer afford to be those ones who hate Indians if Indians actually have money. We need to find a way to work with the Indians. We need to find a way to like the Indians if they carry their money. We need to find a way to work with the Jews. We need to find a way to like the Jews if they carry their money. We can't afford to be those ones who are just black and poor. And yet we don't talk to anybody. Because for us to implement any plan, for us to action any policy, we need to find each other and work together. And unfortunately, the very people that we are so keen to hate are the people who have been sitting around the table discussing some of these policies that will take us where we need to go. But we are too wonderful to have those conversations. And so our federations have a big task here to bring everybody together. We can no longer afford to be those people with federations that don't have fully representative organizations as members. Where are your white organizations? Where are your colored organizations? Unfortunately, I have to use color as a base because even our forms in this country haven't changed. Why do we still have to say, am I black, white, colored, or purple? It's another exclusionary tool that tells the bank not to give me money because I'm black. It's another exclusionary tool that tells that potential boss not to hire me and pay me what I deserve because I'm black. But then what is the role of federations? Federations are there to exactly address that issue. As Sibongile Mngoma, I'm too black to be the dean. Angithi? Yes. As much as I can lecture on so many things, I will not be the head of or the dean of because I'm just too black and I'm too woman on top of everything else. Never mind the struggle of a black child. There's also the struggle of a black female child. So what is it then that the federations should be doing around about now? They should be talking. Talk, but don't talk things that don't build. Talk things that do build. We can't be talking about how I dislike you. We need to be talking about, regardless of how much we dislike or don't even care about each other, we need to agree to disagree if we need to. But then we also need to get somewhere. We have to get out of the holes that we've dug for ourselves because we refuse to talk to each other. We refuse to communicate because we are too egotistical. We are creatives. I'm an artist. Yeah. Must mean nama awards are 50. If those awards are not putting bread on the table, they are absolutely useless. So this is where we need to understand the role of federations and what they should be doing. We cannot be those ones who are sitting there because sesimele the next conference so that we can be voted in and then we eat. Then what's the difference between us and the ones that have failed us in the past 30 years or so? Nothing. But as artists, I do believe we are much better than that. And in fact, I would want to see us going back to being called artists. If you doubt your own artistic ability, then you shouldn't be called an artist. Be okay not to be called an artist. There's nothing that always makes me laugh than when I say to an artist, so what is your art form? And they don't know. Yeah, no, I'm a creative. Great. What is your art form? But we've opened that door because we fail to have conversations that determine what makes you an educated artist in this country. Is it a Western standard of education, or it's the artistic standard of education, which has no race? Art is art is art. If umama othize uhlele emakhaya udlala umakhweyana, the only litmus test for their ability to do what they do kumakhweyana is them picking up that makhweyana and playing it. If ungakhali mntanami ngikhathala ukuthi unama-degree ayi-50 athi wena wazi umakhweyana, ubize nge-musicology if you like, you're still not an expert. Loya mama ongazange ayenze musicology, onganayo i-doctorate, usase i-doctor kuwe. And these are the conversations we are failing to have because we are too stuck in the narratives that we've been fed over and over and over time. We are too scared to question them because when you question them, you'll be locked out. I teach, I compose, I direct, I produce. I am prepared to take 36 kids to South Korea and make sure that they get there and win. And they did. Not because of anything, because of one thing and one thing only. I'm an artist. Yes, I can speak English with the best of them. But before I speak English, when I work with those kids, we speak music. And that's what makes me an artist. It's not my English, it's not my schooling, it's not my traveling, it's the music. Mangifika phambi kwabo sikhuluma English, sikhuluma music. And then you want to tell me ukuthi uzoba idokotela just because now you went to some place and then either they gave you an honorary one or you actually wasted a lot of time fighting with a supervisor. Ukuthi avume ukuthi lento oyishoyo yazi right. And we are not advocating for these things. People are buying their qualifications because we've made it impossible for people to function as artists. We call them creatives. The talent, the expertise is gone. All there is, it's book smarts. Sizanama paper bali. I asked you, if you take the adoption papers and you leave the baby, what are you going to implement? Do you even have a plan? So in essence, that's exactly what we've done with the arts. We have a lot of pieces of paper. The babies are lost. And the babies are the arts and the artists. So now the time has come for us to then call our federations to order and say, Lalelani bandase, surely, your role then is to bring back sanity. Your role then is to bring in the unifying voice that will create that powerful voice that will speak out for artists. Angeke majority of our budget goes to infrastructure, administration, and logistics. And then whatever is said then comes to the artists. Then there's something fundamentally wrong, not with the system, with us. Because it's us who are not having the right conversations. And right now, I'm not even talking as an activist. I'm talking as a thinking person. Imagine ngiyafika ngithi nayi 200 rand, we need to buy bread and milk. Right? 200 rand. And then I say, we can't use 200 rand, we can use 20. The other 180 has to go towards infrastructure and logistics. Isinkwa sona siyaphuma kulo 20 rand. My point. That's all I'm saying. So I hope ukuthi we are understanding our roles differently, because it's not going to happen overnight, but it does take a paradigm shift. Something has to change here. If it's not happening here, it's not going to happen here. And it's certainly not going to happen there, and it's not going to happen here. So something has to happen here for it to happen there, and there, and there. With that being said, I'm going to just put a pause on it and take some questions, because I prefer to keep going while we are still here. I'm not going to say I close, because there's a lot of questions I know, and probably even remarks. But I would like us to have an open conversation, because if we don't converse, it's me talking at you. I don't want to talk at you. I want us to walk out of here having empowered each other, because we understand the need to converse and to be able to question what it is that we are doing and why we are not getting it right. Ngeke kuze kuthi 3 years after the pandemic, we are still not right. Out of that pandemic, we should have come up with something very tangible and very workable. But seems like we were just sitting there feeling like victims, and we came out crying instead of coming out with a plan, because we had a plan. So what is it that is making us not think like people who have a plan, who have to plan for a future? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mama Sibongile Mngoma. That was very, very insightful, and we hope that we have learned a lot. So let's take some questions. Let me see with the raise of hands, so that we can allow you an opportunity as well. Thank you. 1 here, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we'll take the first 5, and then we'll have another round. Is it okay? Thank you.
Well, listening to you, my name is Sipo. Listening to you and reflecting back on what was said at the podium, or what came out of the podium, I remain confused and conflicted. To a certain extent, I like what you're saying. But, you know, to some extent, it feels to me personally, it feels like the junk food that will soon result into, it feels like I will be bloated subsequent to what I've just heard. You know, all of this is beginning to sound like a political speak. It sounds right, but it doesn't feel right. You know, I don't know, maybe I was hoping for some specifics that will point to where we're at and where we should go. So, yeah, that's how I feel. In fact, as you were speaking, and I was thinking of the two other speakers that have been there and that have said all what they've said. I sort of, you know, it took me to the elections. I was beginning to think of the fact that we are voting again next year, and politicians will be saying this and meaning the other. So, yeah, that's my personal take.
Yo, sanibonani. Hey. The way you captured the audience, we were unable to even clap once. I don't know, it's because people were scared of the things you were saying, or maybe, I don't know. But I hear everything that you're saying, and Ngesizulu City, for me, like you were saying for him. For me, I would say, Uishaya is Konkoswin, but Uishaya is Konkoswin. Because I myself, as a performer, the reason I decided to join ISIFSA was because I realized, Uguti, we cannot just be performers. And we cannot keep saying that we are not politicians. Because whether we like it or not, it affects us when there are no proper people in that space representing us. Because we constantly saying that the reason why things are happening the way they are happening in those departments, it's because there are no proper artists that are running those departments. So if we keep saying that as artists we are not politicians, then we are contradicting ourselves. My question to you, Ndlovukazi, is, since the establishment of ISAFSEF, can I kindly ask you to share some of the successes? Because of the things that you are mentioning, I think you know your role. You know the things that you're supposed to be doing. For the time that you started till today, I will appreciate it if you can share the successes. Thank you. Sorry,
Greetings, all of you. Sabona Mngoma. What an honor and a privilege to finally meet you. Igama lami uSiqala Mkhondo. I advocate for artists with disabilities in the country. I would like to agree with you, but also form a partnership with all the relevant stakeholders, ABOC, FABO, archive, not just for me, but for my fellow colleagues in the creative space around disability. I recently registered a company so I can advocate without fear or favor, because among those here I advocate for people with disabilities, I need to create jobs for them as well. And in order for me to create those jobs, I need to have my own identity. I need to start questions such as disability accessibility for a wheelchair. Is the venue accessible? In order for us to have an inclusive media art industry, let's also include people with disabilities.
Thank you. My name is Tswani. I'm from Solimoholo Foundation. Thank you for making time to come here and talk to us. And I really do appreciate, because the challenge that you are having, as I hear from your presentation, that we are not united and we are not represented. And for that, we can see a lot of things that are happening around us. About us, we are not there. The biggest challenge now, when you look at the things that they do when you apply for funding, they will tell you no under 18. And this means that person needs somebody else to apply on her behalf. And the person who's actually doing the arts is the child who's under 18. So the question now is, that person is doing the application, get approved, but there are people who are benefiting from that child's craft, and the child is getting nothing and struggling. And as long as we are not uniting to work on those kind of things, it becomes a problem. Another thing, I strongly believe that a child who's at school can actually do or reach to matric at the age of 8 or 9, because art is not even taught at school, and that's a problem. A child who can play piano, a child who can play guitar, why can't we use RPL? RPL is a recognition of prior learning, which the Constitution approved, whereby they say if you know something, you get an assessor, and that assessor assesses you and check with the moderators, and they get the external moderator, and you go to another class. They don't have to wait for you for 12 months to move to another class. But as long as we don't unite and learn and know this information, it becomes a problem in South Africa. So I'm happy for you to come and share with us so that we can strengthen our unity and fight for our liberation. Thank you.
Sanbaran. My name is Busiso, and I would say I'm a budding artist or creative entrepreneur. Thank you so much for your presentation and your lecture. I think it's the most phenomenal set of information that I've ever heard presented in the creative industry. Can we please give another round of applause, guys? One thing I would like to just say, and I'm just going to keep it short, things like this need to continue. And the reason why is because I think people think creatives don't think. So I think we all need to support platforms like this a lot more. We need to share the content a lot more. We need to inter-share each other's content, and then we can create bigger audiences. With bigger audiences, brands will pump in. For instance, I'll just make 2 quick examples. It takes 53,000 streams for an artist to make 200 Rand in South Africa. But 53,000 streams over the seas in America makes you at least 10,000 Rand. You understand? There's a problem with the people who are negotiating on our behalf, which is what Uma is saying. Now, and the second example is, for instance, Amapiano. How many people know that Amapiano within the majors was given about 200 million Rand budget for them to circulate Amapiano music as a priority? So you've got DJ Maporisa, Kabza the Small, the rest, and then you can start and set up an equivalent to a Nigerian market to compete amongst ourselves. But we're not even owning a quarter of that market share, because when it trickles down, which is an economical term, when it trickles down, you are getting the peanuts. And remember, you're a sub-sector beneficiary because you are on grant, because you accepted that pacifier. Okay, thanks.
I think we can allow Mama Sibongile to respond to this set of questions, and then we'll take another round. Thank you.
I think it's been more comments than questions. I'll start with you who asked for specifics in terms of what SASIF has done. Remember during the pandemic when artists were not getting their 10,000 Rand grants and they were approved? What SASIF did, we collected the data. Who has been approved, what their names are, their bank account numbers, and we took all that information to the department for them to be paid. That was an active thing that we did. It wasn't we just went there and say pay the artists. It was an actual do something about it. We went because we pride ourselves on having a very solid wing. What is it called? What open time? The data collection. We have a good wing with that, so we make sure that we don't thumbsuck information. Where we come with information, we come with information that is solid and actionable, and every last person got paid. Even the ones that thought they hadn't been paid, then that money could be traced. You remember there are people who got paid, but then accounts were in arrears, so they couldn't see even the money that was paid into their account. Then they could essentially track their money and see that money was paid at such and such a time because we made sure that we collect that data and we submitted it. The other thing that we have done that is proactive is we went to the NAC. The reason why information is coming through clearer and more accessible is because we went there and we said, your grant management system is not working, but because you're not ready to change it, at least you can do 1, 2, 3, 4 that will make it more functional. And the reason why you are sitting here with more people at least understanding better, and them even being able to say, but can't you see the improvement? The unfortunate part is that they will not come out and say, we sat down with SASIF and this is what came out of that sitting, which is fine. We are not here for, that. We are here to get the work done, and that's all we do. Just to give you 2 examples of what we've done. And for a change, we are that federation that went and met with the minister, and we sat down and we said, okay, we don't say other people don't exist, but we are here. We would like you to recognize us because the truth of the matter is that artists do not trust some of the organizations that have been around the table with the minister and the decision makers. Then surely they need someone that they can trust to sit around the table so that they understand that they are being truly represented. And that's why I keep saying, at some point we need to find each other, because we cannot afford to be artists that don't trust each other. We have to work together. At some point, we have to function in the same space. So whether we like each other, we don't like each other, bottom line is we have to work in the same space. Can you imagine if every production that went to the National Arts Festival was made up of people who were friends? Then essentially half of the country wouldn't go. In fact, not even half. A third, 2/3 of the country wouldn't go. But you go there because you have a product worth selling, worth consuming. And that's why people go there. And you meet people you don't know from a bar of soap. And you can work together to find common ground that will grow us somewhere. In terms of eating junk, I understand where you're coming from. That is pure disillusionment. And I come from that too. total disillusionment in a space where you hear a lot of. But truth be told, I'm one person, I can speak the language, but I can also action it. I don't just talk. Whatever I say, I will go and do. Yes, it sounds like the same old that you've heard, but how many people can stand here with me and say, I have fought for artists on the ground. The police have brutalized me. I have sat at the NAC for 60 days. This is not junk food. This is actual reality. It happened. I was there. So I can understand where you're coming from, and I understand the disillusionment of that, but I also understand that we cannot now be lumping people together with people who have never delivered. I have delivered on my side, and I think the whole of South Africa have seen that. If you haven't seen it, it's very easy to find that information. It's all over any media you can look at, it's there. In terms of political speak, unfortunately, when you're talking about the public purse, you will not stop talking without touching on political issues, because unfortunately, we are existing in a space that is run by politicians, and that means the public purse is held by politicians. Whether we want to engage them or not, for us to access some things, we have to engage them. So if it sounds like political speak where we need to vote again, I don't know. All I know is that whoever is in charge at a given point is the one that gets the budget from Treasury. So Treasury is not giving the opposition party that budget. Treasury is giving the ruling party that budget. So if we are unable to talk to whichever party becomes the ruling party in the next election, then it's on us. But like I said, as federations, it's up to us then to say, we don't go in there to represent a political party. We go in there to represent artists because we are non-partisan. We are not a political organization, but we are organizations that represents artists that should be able to speak truth to power. If artists cannot speak truth to power, then they don't deserve to be called artists anymore, because they are just a mouthpiece for whatever political party that they are representing. So I don't know if I'm addressing whatever issue you're raising there about junk food and political speak, but we cannot run away from the fact that we are operating in a political space, and it is okay for us to say, I can go into the bank without being a financial person. I can just be a consumer of the financial product. And then in terms of people with disabilities, I think it's unfortunate that, again, we always fall into the trap yama forms. We like writing AMA forms that say how many people are in your group with disabilities and how many non-binary people. And then at the end of the day, if I had to come, unfortunately, there is no real process in place. You would double check that people are doing what they say they are. They can say they have 10 people with disabilities, and then you go to the project, there's not a single person with disabilities, and yet they got money based on that. And they can still say they have non-binary people, and you walk in there, there's not a single non-binary person. If anything, there's a lot of homophobic people in that space. So there's a lot of things that need advocacy and lobbying from the side of our federations. Are we holding each other accountable? Are we questioning what is going down? If I have 480 organizations in my federation, do I know what each one is doing? Can I vouch for them? When they say to me, Sibongile, can you write us a recommendation letter? Can I honestly say this recommendation letter is based on fact, or am I writing it because you're just part of my federation? And then on the issue of, what did he say? It was a comment, no, it wasn't a question. And then that was also a comment. There was no question there. So I think I've addressed the concerns and questions.
Thank you very much. So let's take another set of questions. We'll start with Abuti Tami. Can I see the second person, please? The side. Okay, but I think he raised his hand first before you. So it's going to be him, and the two ladies, and Mama Messi. All right. Okay, guys, we still have more time, so you can still ask more questions, okay? It's very nice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, President. I just want to ask something. You've spoken about the two federation, and I'm glad you. But can you also talk about the importance of artists associating themselves with organization? And also, when you do that, because there's a lot of confusion across the country about these different organizations. Like, for example, someone might think organization like Cciga is similar to Arm for the Arts or Abahlali or Stand or Saga, you understand? So if you can give us a breakdown, like for example, I would say because Cciga is one of the active organizations, what is the difference when you're talking about Cciga? What is the difference when you're talking about Saga, which is a guild for actors? What is the difference when you talk about Tumsa? So that artists understand, like for example, you say you are president of Arm for the Arts, which is totally different from South, which is totally different from Abahlali. We understand that, so unpack us so that the people that are here know why it's important to associate themselves with structures like Cciga. Thank you very much.
Sanibona. Igama lami ngubheki ngwakamlambo. Siyabonga kakhulu Makhiwane. You've enlightened us kwezinye izinto. Bengiqala ukuzwa nge-federation le oyipresentayo or oyirepresentayo. My question is, uyabona yini mhlawumbe ngelinye ilanga lama federations agwi creative sector or creative industries working together, because ngeke enye i-federation iyo present eParliament certain policies ifike nale iyo representa ama policies namanye that includes the policies that has been submitted by the other. Ilokho nje ngibuza, ngiyabonga.
Molweni Mama Mngoma. Ndicela ukuthathela ithuba okokuqala ndibulele mama, ndikuncome ngomsebenzi omhle owenzayo nosawuqhubayo. Igama lami ndinguNasiphi Boy. I am an aspiring singer and songwriter. I am coming from the Eastern Cape, from a village called Amroth. So umbuzo wami endinawo, from listening to you speaking and engaging us, have there been any initiatives or outreach programs that you guys have started or initiated to break into that rural space?
Sorry, I'm losing you completely. There's someone talking and I can't hear what you're saying because I'm picking them up as well.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, but there's that other conversation. I don't know if we can help me out because in Gizwalea conversation, I can't even focus on what she's saying. Sorry, love.
Are we good now?
Yeah.
Bendisithi ke mama wami bendicela nje uqala ndikuncome ngomsebenzi omhle owenzayo nosaqhubeka uwenza. I am an aspiring singer and songwriter coming from a village called Amroth, Mount Freya. Umbuzo wami endinawo for wena, uthi, have there been any initiatives or outreach programs that you guys have embarked on in terms of trying to bridge that gap for artists who reside in the villages because they don't have exposure or knowledge in terms of industry? Sebenza kanjani xa ufuna uqala umculo funeka uthathe eliphi inyathelo, izinto ezihamba nje kwelo cala. Bendicela nje ukusikhanyisele kuloo ndawo ke mama.
Sanibonani. Mam Sibongile, I just want to say thank you for your beautiful lecture. I think we learned so much, you explaining and unpacking what a federation does and what it should do. My biggest concern as a mental health advocate and a GBV advocate in the creative space. Every day I'm in this industry, we still have a very long way to go when it comes to mental health. Number one is because we create it amongst ourselves. So the biggest issue that I've also picked up is that just because you think you're 2 steps ahead of someone else, you feel as if you are doing them a favor. Yet you are forgetting that even that upcoming artist that is singing at your event for free, when they should be paid, is adding so much value. I plead with organizations like this to try and also involve mental health in everything that you do, because as much as we are talking about regulations, we are talking about the law, we are talking about labor, mentally, if we are disturbed, we are not going to produce. Mentally, when we are not right, we are not going to have a plan. We come from homes where they do not believe in us. I wake up and come here and dedicate my time. I'm expecting a healthy environment, because I still have to go back and explain to my family why I couldn't bring bread, but I was in front of cameras. That's number one. Secondly, I'm not saying icons like you are not doing it, but what I'm pleading with icons like you, because when I mention my name as a young artist, I'm not recognized, but if we had to mention your name, people would listen. If we start moving around with love, it will make it a better place. Artists commit suicide on a daily basis because on top of being hungry, we are mistreated, we are exploited, and we are not valued. And on top of all of that, nasemakhaya, not that they don't love us, but they understand the pressure and they wish we went to school and gotten a job, so we are not mentally affected. We do not talk about suicide enough. We do not talk about our mental state enough. We are not productive and we are not planning 10 years ahead because we are hungry and mentally we are damaged and we are broken. So we move, all of us here, we move with a dysfunction of hatred and fear and pain and brokenness and hunger. That's why we cannot express love and support. So I'm pleading that we start focusing as well. While we regulate and manage the law, can we also make sure that mentally we're at a better state to write those beautiful songs and poems?
Yo, I actually samadeki. Okay. Yeah, no, Sanbonani. Thank you very much, Swosh. You know, I'm going to say it very loud. You're my shiro. And I really, really, really valued the content that you have. You know, and it's very rare that you find women in arts industry speaking fluent and exact what they're supposed to say about the industry. And when we share isikhongosini, one thing that I'm going to request to you today is that advocate for unity of these federations in order for us to reclaim our heritage, our territory, and our legacy. I am repeating myself because I've been saying these things in all the platforms that I get. You spoke about intellectual property. And how do you have an intellectual property when you do not own any other kind of resource in your continent? Even the God-given resources, we don't own them. They're owned by Jews in our own country. When it comes to music, Even then, during apartheid regime systems, we did not own our works. Our works are owned by international owned record companies. And it is not because we could not do it, it's because of the system. And we have our greats who passed on, who have children and grandchildren who do not know what to do about their heritage. Whilst those in America are benefiting from their heritage, and they will benefit for the rest of their life. We have archives of these record companies in our country. The 4 major record companies who own the works of the likes of Mamu Margaret Mngoma, the works of the likes of Mamu Mavis Maseko. And the industry has been purely male-dominated. And it is high time that we stand together as women and reclaim our space. As our mama back in 1994 in politics, because each and every industry has its own politics. Even the creative art, music industry, arts fraternity has its own politics that we need to deal with. Lastly, the modules, education modules, has never changed since apartheid regime system. Actually, they would say since 1978, it was still during apartheid regime system. So what changes have we made in the creative arts fraternity? Nothing. So Thixo ngicela ukuthi ungincede Torhwane. Andifuna ukufa dishiye iheritage yami ezandleni zaka Mike Fuller endingamazi nobuhlalaphi. Abantwana bakhe ba benefit from my works as they are doing with Umntana kaBrenda Fassie. Umntana kaBrenda Fassie, I was talking to Ubongani. Silo Chico Twala sold all his works to Gallo. And when he sells the works to Gallo, it simply means umsebenzi kaBrenda is sold to Gallo. And Ubongani and abantwana bakaBrenda, abazukulwana bakaBrenda have no heritage. So Thixo masiyenzeni lento man singabafazi. Men failed us in the industry. We have to stand up and do it for ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mama Sibongile, you may respond.
All right, thank you so much. I will start with the question Yagatami, which speaks to the difference between a movement, a guild, a forum, and a federation. Because I think it speaks to what Mames is talking about, the networking and collective bargaining of the cultural and creative industries. Now, if you understand the nature of an industry, you have to network and you should have bargaining power. Because Aniti, if you're coming to buy a loaf of bread, what are you bargaining with? The money that you use to buy the loaf of bread. So what is our bargaining power as an industry? Our bargaining power is our collective being. So, good difference. I'm for the arts, for example, as a movement. And then, what does a movement do? A movement, it lobbies, it mobilizes, it takes action. For example, during the pandemic, when For the Arts started, we were lobbying for people to have, first of all, a voice that is heard. Secondly, we're mobilizing artists to not just sit at home and feel disempowered and powerless, but be mobile enough to know that there are solutions to whatever problems. People were killing themselves. We're mobilized for people to start thinking outside the box. And then you take action. We went to the NAC. We went to the department because we take action. That's what a movement does. And then you have a guild like Cciga. A guild is a group of people who have similar requirements. Like, for instance, Cciga, it's for what? Actors, right? It's for actors. They have similar requirements, and then they play a similar role in society, whether it's education through entertainment or just pure entertainment or edutainment, whatever it is. But they play a similar role. And then they pursue mutual aid, which is what Cciga does. They look for aid for their members. Hence, they have a membership fee that then covers the aid that they get for their members. That's a guild. And then you have a forum. Sakaif is not a federation, it's a forum. It's a platform where people get together and they share ideas, whether it's actionable ideas or if it's visionary ideas, and discuss plans. Remember the plan I was talking about? You can't implement if you don't even have a plan. Before you can implement, first of all, have a plan. In order to come up with a plan, you have to discuss, share ideas. That's a forum. They ask questions. Why is something not working? Why are certain things not happening? And then they also share their experiences in terms of what it is that we're going through together. As a group of people, do you relate to what it is that I'm also facing? That's a forum. Now, a movement and a forum can all belong to a federation because they are all organizations. A guild can also belong to a federation, but because it is an organization. And then coming back then to a federation, what is a federation? It's when all of these different people with different roles and ideas come together to then say, where we are, we cannot reach certain things. Where we are, we cannot touch certain aspects. Then let's come together and pull together our collective bargaining power, hence the powerful voice. So that is what it means. And then the networking is the communication that is not happening. That is why every time we come together, people will say, this is just information that doesn't feel like it's taking us somewhere because we constantly meet to discuss. We don't meet to action. So the networking shouldn't just be a networking because you just want to get together and meet people with like-minded people. So the way I usually explain networking, I say it works like this. If you go to the sea and you're looking for fish, right? You cast a net. There's a purpose to the casting of the net. When you cast the net, the aim is to get something out with your net. So if you're just casting the net for the fun of casting a net, then that's not a networking session, but it is just a get-together. But if it's networking, then you are working the net because the net has to bring something back, and whatever it is that you're throwing in, then it must bring the fish. All right, so we cannot be networking if the net is not working for us. You cast that net to work for you and bring you something that is tangible, that is actionable. So when you come into a networking space and you don't come out with workable contacts, you haven't networked. You've just been socializing. So when you network, you want to come out with something that is going to generate something for you, whether it's an income or an idea or a vision, but something has to come out of that process. So that's why you cast the net to work for you. And then in terms of, so I think I've answered the first one, Yagatami. Is there a chance of the federations working together, the two ones that we have? Absolutely. There is absolutely a chance that we can, as long as we are all prepared to put aside our egos. Because this one is not on the organizations that we represent as leaderships of federation. It's on us as the leadership to say, are we willing to then sit around the table and have a conversation that takes us, if, for example, using the example that you used, if we ended up in parliament, are we speaking the same language? Or am I going to get up and say, I can say it better because I've got better English? So it's possible. So in terms of initiatives to bridge the gap between the rural and the peri-urban and urban, it's a difficult one. For us to function even as we speak as federations, we need money. And right now, Tina, as SASIF, we are functioning on a no money basis. Yonke into esiyenza, it's voluntary, and we pay for things, if anything. We are the ones paying for things. We don't have a budget from any government department. We don't get any support from anybody. We don't even charge membership fees because we understand artists have been through the most. So right now to ask artists to pay a membership fee is a little bit premature because people just don't have that kind of money. So we are waiting until we can show, or at least let's get you a little bit here, a little bit there, and then let's talk about how we assist our own processes. You understand? So no, we don't have the type of budget that would take us from the urban to the peri-urban to the rural in order to bridge the gaps. Yes, we do advocate for consideration to be taken into account when, especially when funding calls are made. You're talking about people need to have data to send forms. People need to have data to actually access the grant management system. People need to have data to send, to just scan an ID copy. And yet, kune load shedding. Where's load shedding when it happens, even network goes. So when do you submit your stuff when you cannot even access basics like electricity? So yes, we do try and say, let's look at other ways. That's why even now, they've gone back a little bit to saying you can submit physically if you can't submit online, but it's still an issue. We shouldn't even be there. If we scrapped the grant management system completely, scrapped it completely, it would solve a lot of problems because it would just mean that there is more access to the funding, but it is not grant, it's actual funding to stimulate the economy and generate an income, because asikwazi ukuthi every year, year in, year out, hat in hand, we are all asking for money. We should start generating an income that is rotational. And right now it's not, because it's too little and not as well managed as it should be. So that's where we are struggling with bridging the gap between the rural and the urban, because we are not speaking the same language of empowerment. We are still speaking the language of managing a grant system. So manage dysfunction. And then in terms of mental health issues, you cannot run away from mental health issues if you are not dealing with the cause, the root cause. Where there's poverty, there will always be discontent. And when people are hungry, they will do just about anything. There are so many stories of people who started eating each other because they ran out of food. And right now, we may not be eating each other physically, but we are eating each other in a lot of other ways. We are selling each other down the drain because I'd rather sell you down the drain and get out with some money for me. We are cutting each other off so that we can feed off each other. And that is what causes mental health issues. And then on top of that, when you do get that little bit of money that you are using, that you are getting by cutting off of me, you still don't pay me. And then I still have the same issues I had before you cut off me to eat off me. My kids still need to go to school, still need to pay school fees. I still have to pay rent or a bond, still need to pay for transport, still need to feed the family, still need to buy the electricity that has to make sure that has to be used for me to apply for the next funding call when it comes out. And yet we expect that somehow we should be okay to treat each other well. At the moment, it's a big ask. It is a big ask. You would hope that somehow Ubuntu Betu will kick in and we will start treating each other better. But you know, human nature doesn't quite work like that. We still treat each other better when we are going through the most because we are not managing our own selves. And then in terms of healthy working spaces, that's another difficult ask. All our working spaces have been handed over to government departments as well as churches. Sorry, lapho phezulu. Can you please ask them to just keep it down? Sisaqhubeka la enzansi. Thank you. We are still struggling with access to our spaces, community theater spaces, community centers, because they've been handed over to government department as well as churches. And Nakwana, they're not always churches, our own churches. They're churches from, that are run by people who don't even come from this country. And then we're expecting healthy working spaces, kanjani, because we are fighting to get access. If out of 24 hours, we only have 2 hours for 10 groups to share a space, it's not going to be healthy. So AMA federations have a lot of work that they need to address, that they need to sort out, because without us as federations doing what we need to do, the same old problems will continue and the same old issues remain unaddressed. So AMA federations, it goes back to what I'm saying, what is the role of the federations, the CCI and the federations, what is our roles? So what is it that we're supposed to be doing? We can't be sitting here just holding positions, but we are not making a change that is bringing about tangible results. Umama Messi spoke about IP and lack of ownership, a systemic problem that we haven't addressed as a country. That's a problem that we will keep talking about until such time as we remember who we are. As artists, not creatives, as artists, what is our role? Before the federations and the organizations come to the party, what is our role as artists? As long as Minangsa say artist, it belongs to somebody, I will never speak against somebody. I need to be an artist that has agency, because then my art will speak. If I don't have agency, my art will never speak. It will remain watered down, and it will remain art, and we cannot be artists like that. And the reason why the system hasn't changed is because we have failed to ask questions like, why is it that even our contracts haven't changed in so many years? Why is it our contracts still talk about ownership here 7% for the artist, and most of our majors are not even South African record labels? Where are our majors in this country? Why is it always that there's someone who has to come in as a validator? Why is it that we are not importing? Because it is that important. So, economic problem, the system yethu iyabheda, and we haven't questioned our system because we are too scared to question the system, because the system feeds us. He who controls the purse controls the narrative. So if the system yethu isasifida, as long as isasifida, kuzoba nzima for thina ukuthi sikwazi ukuthi siyiquestion isystem yethu, and iya ngokuya it's growing worse by the day, because we come in and we make it worse. We don't come in to change things, we come in to feed. You know, if you've read the book Animal Farm, you will know when people go and feed at the char, it's only pigs that feed at the char. Everybody else feeds ngaphandle. In terms of the animals, they feed outside, but pigs feed at the char. And that's why when pigs feed at the char, they will mess, because for them it's all about ukhala. So If you understand that, then you understand why it's difficult for us as a country to be artists that function in a manner that questions the system. Angeke kube nanamhlanje, I will say this again, sisakhuluma ngama forms abhalwe black, white, Indian, colored, in a country that is supposedly rainbow. Surely that form should just have rainbow.
Thank you very much. We are left with 5 minutes, so I'm only going to take 2 questions, but different people. I'm not going to repeat the same people, unfortunately. Thank you. Unfortunately not. I need to take new people. Let's go there. Do we have another person? A different person? A different person? Nothing? All right. Then I will give... Hey, yeah, Ngizo decide.
Oh, sanibonani, sawubona Mama Sibongile. Ngiyabonga kakhulu ukuba la ekhaya namhlanje and ngifunde okuningi kakhulu, ngijabulile. Igama lami ngumduduzi from Orlando East. Soweto. I'm an artist. Yes. I'm a dancer. I dance isipanzula. And then I teach even isipanzula to ukaya ngihamba naye uDumi. And then I do events. So into engajabulela ukuyibuza mina kuwe mama ukuthi as artists sifacana nento eziningi. So like there was some point la sahlangana khona ne advert, and then advert yakhona isitshela ngokuthi ine sponsors elutho, sponsors zanzani, fake sponsors ba advertiser izinto ezifake. And then we applied. After applying kuleyo ndawo basifunana basinikeza account number basifuna ama 500. And then as mina ngi choreographer and then group leader I send 500. After sending that 500 the person vanished. So I went to police station and then they didn't take me seriously. You understand? I don't know, is it because of Obona Ataye Spansula or something? You understand? They didn't take me seriously. And then I didn't know ukuthi ngaya yipi platform ukuthi ngibuze ukuthi lo muntu angatholakala kanjani kuphi. You understand? So that's why I'm thinking an opportunity ukuthi ngithole ukuthi there are ama industries ama organization akanje. You understand? And then secondly, the question yami engayisho futhi ukuthi as ama artists there is some point la mhlambe bangibize for acting ezovela ku SABC 1 for an example. SABC 1 and then SABC 1 leyo nto leyo it's a nation state ibhekwa abantu abaningi. So kuleyo ndawo leyo maybe njengoba ngi-artist bathi bazonginikeza 15,000 while I'm delivering into engayenza something like ezobayenzela imali kakhulu. So as ama-artist sithola imali encane and we don't know ukuthi singakhalela ubani ongakhulumela thina as ama-artist. Like ngisebenze ngivele ku-SABC 1 but angikwazi nokuthenga imoto. You see. Thank you very much.
Ofunimoto. So I'm going to give, Mama Sibongile, if you forgive me, I'm just going to give them last chance because there's no one raising their hand. I gave them, no, I'm going to, oh, did you? Yeah, I'm saying because I did ask him.
No,
Okay, on my side, it's just when you said that there's no membership collection, it's also us as contributors to take accountability for the platforms that fight for us. With my brother, obviously, you know, those are things we get catfished all the times. There's a lot of times where we're told, okay, give us this, and that's the current language of the industry. If you don't contribute Biola, then you get excluded. So, like, these are organizations that fight with us. I'm not sure if whether any of those people who received 10,000 plowed back, you know, so those are things that we as people must also understand, and it's a different culture that we need to cultivate within amongst ourselves to say, you know, let's also contribute to these type of platforms. Everybody's got a plate in front of them, but no one understands the cost that it takes to get the guys with the cameras, create the designs, you know, manage the social media pages to keep us informed, you know, and that stuff all comes at a cost. We're not going to be a volunteer industry. If you can Google, this is a fact, and I must correct, it's not 200 Rand, it's $200. So for 50,000 streams, you get $200. It's nothing. For 50,000 streams in America, you're getting $10,000. So you can already see the disparity there. So I needed to correct that, number one. Number two, there's 11 million people on a grant. The minimum grant they get is 350. So if you calculate that every month, that's what government is giving away. And you as artists, how much do you think you need collectively to be able to deliver high quality genres and stuff? You know, I'm just planting seeds, but let us volunteer to contribute to organizations like this. Thank you.
Yeah, I just need to throw in a stone of clarity, lest I be misconstrued for a hater. Much respect for you as well. You know that. As an artist, I respect you so much. The tough talk was meant for a tough personality, which I knew that they would throw back a talk they would throw back a ball of education up to me. So I really appreciate it. I must say I deliberately moved away from sentimentality because it wouldn't help us a bit. Because I knew who I was talking to. You know, with other people, I wouldn't be as tough as this. But I knew because I'm desperate for help. I'm desperate for education. And what you have said has really opened my eyes, you know. And I was able to see the things that I would not have been able to see if I didn't come here. So much appreciated.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone. You know, going back to the issue of who speaks for Ipansula, for example, because I asked a question earlier, how do we define educated artists in this country? What makes for an educated artist? Is it a university degree? Is it a qualification from a certain institution? As amapansula, I've seen Menabo Beyonce doing amapansula. Are you protected as amapansula who generate lamastepo? I don't know. I don't think so. Because that is what the federations should be advocating for. The protection of the intellectual property rights that, like I said, Obudmandla would come in, teach you everything you need to know about IP and protecting IP. But then who's advocating and lobbying for that on a bigger scale? Because as federations, that's where we take on international issues. Because if we can't take on the international issues, then who's talking to government departments and corporates on the behalf of the organizations and individual artists that fall under those organizations? So as federations, we have a job, a duty to then say, because you won't expect each and every artist individually or collectively as organizations to come in here and knock at your door. You will not open for them. But as federations, we can. But are we? And that's why I keep saying, what is the role then? Because if Sihleli City Sama Federation and we are not lobbying for you not to be exploited like that again, there will always be some chance taker who is always coming up with some 419 scam to say 500 Rand for 1, 2, 3 and 5, 6, 17 inheritance. Ongayazi ukuthi iphuma nenini you've won ilotho ongazange uyidlale. That, you know, but then there's got to be somebody who is advocating for you and saying, never mind the scammers, but then here are some legitimate artists. What is protecting them? Where is the policy that protects them? Where is the legislation that regulates how the industry functions? Why are we still talking about artists being paid 300 rand here, 500 rand lapayana? What is the minimum wage in the creative industry space? Do we have a minimum wage? Or is it just, Sibongile can thumb suck today, if I feel like it, I give you, if I don't, then I don't, and then I'm like, but you got exposure, except exposure doesn't buy bread. So who is advocating for all of that? And that's where I'm still saying, this is where you have a right to then come back to us as the leadership, Yama Federation way, to say, but then, if this is what you should be doing, surely I expect you to then do that. And yes, Tina Singena membership fee, you would expect that people would plow back, but people will people. People will essentially people when it comes time to people, they will people. And they won't come back and say, thank you, Nai Imali, for just to cover your internet or just to cover the phone calls that you had to make for me to even get my 10,000 rand. No, they won't. Because they are people. People will people. But then that doesn't mean we stop doing good. We continue doing good. Hopefully, as time goes, as we learn, we then understand the need to do better and to do more. But that comes from us. We will not lead unless we know how to be led by the people we lead. Because the people that we are leading are the ones who gives us a mandate, and that is how we are led. Because Tina says, dictate. We can't dictate. We are led by the people who give us mandate. So I hope by saying all of that, today has been fruitful. I've learned a lot. My eyes have been opened a lot. And thank you very much, Cciga. Thank you, Sisa Joburg. Thank you, Creative Expo. And thank you to each and every one of you who came out today and those people who were streaming with us. And thank you for all the comments, the remarks, the questions. They help us to do better. It's not just that I'm being asked questions and then I have to answer, but it also just means that I also have to question my role as a sitting president. What am I doing? Am I just sitting there to be called president, or am I making a difference and doing something positive in the industry? Thanks again. Until next time, keep on creating.
Thank you so much, Mams Bongile. We really appreciate it. Siyabonga. Thank you. Thank you. They always say, di legends di leboa ke di legends tse ding. So ke tlo kopa legend ya rona motlong a tla tlo leboa legend e nngwe. Ntate Arthur, please.
Yo. One more time. You know what's amazing about these lectures, ne? You think, yeah, now you know, ne? Have you noticed? Once you watch one or you attend one, you think, I'm covered. And then comes somebody else, and then they take it to another level, you know. So we keep learning. I mean, did you hear the intro part where they talk about the definition of arts and creative arts and CCI? If you missed it, go watch it again. Because I'm sure by then you were still shaking. You didn't hear that part. That, for me, was the defining moment of this lecture. I don't know if you guys still remember what she said. That for me was the defining moment. And that's what differentiated this lecture from the other lectures that you've already had. Because sometimes we don't even know who we are. Every time we come here and we are given this confidence about ourselves. We're becoming leaders. You know, we come here, you think, I'm leading people. But honestly speaking, like we said when we started, this is going to be the biggest network session ever in the country, where one wishes we could get funding and go all over the country and do the same for everyone. But luckily, because we are streaming live, these things are captured, they are there, and other people out there can see. But they mustn't just watch and steal what Sibongile was saying. They need to book her to go touch their souls and hearts wherever. She flew from Bloemfontein, in fact, from South Korea to here, to Bloemfontein. From Bloemfontein, she flew here. She has to go back just because she loves you. But what we don't want is people taking these clips and just playing them somewhere. They need to call her because all these topics, according to what she sees as she speaks, they are not programmed. So nizwile lapha emakhaya ninga jointshi ama lecture, hire the real people. Angithi we pay. We have international motivational speakers coming here, and then people pay 500 rand just to listen to what they're saying. She did it for you for free, by the way. You are so lucky. Hence, I'm saying every time you come here, grab something, grab something, grab something. I mean, I always say to people, I was helped by one magazine that I bought as a kid. Then there was no one who was saying what she said to you. So please, let's learn from here and go educate others. Just like Eva was saying earlier on when she said, there will be committees and committees and committees. Let this revolution grow. That's why all we can do for you guys is to bring the experts here to speak to you so that you become informed. I don't know if I missed something. Is there anything that I missed? Oh yes, I missed something. To thank you all. Thank you, Sis Bongile, one more time. Kahle car of onanyana or something nyana nje abuye stage stati tombe na or namang. I'm sure some of you want to appear with her on stage. Ne? We shift this thing and then squala stage and then it's tombe nyana ne? So that one day when you are something ukombe on the picture, it's because of this lady here. Ne? Or namang. Angit? Standing ovation nyana ne? Asinze nige.
Something. All right, before that, can I just announce something quickly while they're still moving this thing? As Cciga, we don't stop here, and I'm very glad that this lecture is really gaining the momentum that it should. So we are inviting every artist that is into arts business. And you don't have to be a registered company. As long as you are practicing in the arts, you are in business. So we are actually literally deliberately transforming you from just being entertainers, as they call us, or just, practitioners, but then getting you guys into business. So I think next week we will be hosting a seminar here where we are inviting all of you who wants to venture into business incubation for 12 months. And that is for free because we are doing it for you. Now, with that business incubation, they're going to take you from the level of like being zero leveled to the highest level in business. And they're going to give you a free mentor. A mentor for free. That person is going to actually take you from one step to another, including teaching you how to make money with your business. All right? And that person is being paid for by Fred, not us. Because as Cciga, we are trying by all means to go look for opportunities out there for you. So if you're interested, please take my number now. Take out your phone. Take my number now. This opportunity comes once because Eva uyahamba neCciga. Are you ready? 065 964 2519. I'm going to repeat the number. 065 964 2519. When you WhatsApp, don't say hi. Say, my name is Ivan Tiso. I am very much interested to form part of the business incubation program. I don't respond to highs. All right. And thank you so much to our other partners, Creative Expo, Sibsa, Joburg. We really appreciate it. Media, etc. and also Diva Entertainment. So the people that you are seeing going up and down, guys, they are volunteering their services. People behind their cameras are not really getting paid. Like Boo said earlier on, that we need to come together, partner, do something so that the government can come and support us. And when we say we are fighting out there, do also support us because we are doing it for you. So please give them a round of applause because these things, they don't come cheap. I would also like to give my thanks on behalf of Cciga and the partners to PSD Designs. All the ladies that you saw outside looking beautiful. It is because of these beautiful designers who have put in their work into these beautiful designs. And then the other one is Luxury Pearls and then YSK Designer. Could you please just stand up? Let's see your faces. Are they still here? Nango Ubuti, Lapaya, Siyabonga. And the beautiful, the lady here as well, Siyabonga. And then we also continue with our digital skills program, guys. We are running this digital entrepreneurship program, Kodi Townshipping. If you're also interested, you now got my number. Please just WhatsApp me and say, Eva, I'm interested in this digital entrepreneurship training because we want to teach you how to make money by utilizing your phone and how to not look for the wrong things on social media platforms, but look for the right things that will empower you and take you forward in your business of the arts, okay? Thank you so much to all of you for coming through. Now, if I may to call all the models and the designers to come first, we do the photo shoot. And thereafter, we take Ama Artisti, and then is the rest of us. Can we do that in that order, please? So all the designers, all the models, please come on.